I give you my word, if you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. We'll choose hope over fear, fact over fiction. Those are the words of Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden during his big virtual convention speech. A global pandemic forced the party to take the 4-day rally online, with Biden closing out the event. The 77-year-old former vice president delivered the speech inside an empty arena in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. CNN's correspondent Nadia Romero was there and says at times it got quite emotional.
This was the old Joe Biden that I remember from 5-10 years ago. He was so sharp, deliberate, and passionate in his remarks, even getting teary-eyed, and you could tell in his voice when he was talking about his beloved late son, Beau Biden. You could tell over the years they had such a great, strong connection. It really seemed like Beau was leading his life after his father was public service, and then at the age of 46, died of brain cancer. And that was really the reason why Joe Biden did not run for president back in 2016. But he said that he promised his son, Beau, that he would continue with his political aspirations, working for the people, and eventually running for president again. And so here we are 4 years later. Joe Biden took the stage. He's done it 2 other times, hoping to be the nominee for the Democrat Party, and finally accomplishing that tonight. And he was sharp. He was passionate. He was very direct. Now, he didn't spend a ton of time talking about President Donald Trump. He left that up to former President Barack Obama and former presidential candidate and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to really bash Trump over the first couple of days of the convention. But Joe Biden really talked more about his vision for America and harping on hope, optimism, change, the same sentiments we heard from the Obama-Biden administration back in 2008 and 2012.
So how difficult would it have been for him to deliver that speech? Because normally you're getting energy from the room, aren't you? You're getting a reaction from the crowd. He's in a vacuum giving one of the most important speeches of the year for him, and there's really nobody there.
Yeah, and this was something that you wondered about. How would he handle this moment? As you mentioned, we all know that Joe Biden is not known for being the greatest orator, right? He's not the best public speaker. He was struggling with a speech impediment for much of his childhood, but he worked through that. And that's why he has this no malarkey kind of slogan or motto about himself. He cuts to the chase. He tells it like it is. And he really hopes that people will see that he's empathetic, that he's compassionate. And that's really what he tried to convey tonight, that he is a man who lost loved ones. He's a man who's been through heartache, and he's fighting for you because he's been there. He understands hardship, and he also understands how to triumph from that. And this was a difficult time because throughout this entire convention, the first time ever being virtual, you don't have the streamers and the banners and the chanting and the energy from the crowd, but he performed so well tonight, really leaving it all out there and wearing his heart on his sleeve.
Nadia, do we know how many people tuned into this, what seems to be the world's longest Zoom call over 3 days? How many people actually watched it?
You know, I think it's hard to calculate. I saw a number the other day that was at 23 million. Don't quote me on that. I think it will be hard to really calculate who was watching this. There are some people who watched on Facebook Live, on Instagram Live. There are other people who went on to the Democrat National Convention YouTube and watched it. Then you have the folks that watch it on live stream in other ways. And then there are some people who watched on network cable or television to see this speech. I think it's going to be really hard to know, to tell what usually happens after a convention, and maybe this will be an indicator, is the money that comes to the DNC or the RNC. Will they have a boost in donors and people who say, you know what, I believe in him now. I believe in her. Here's $50. Here's $50,000, whatever the amount may be. The other thing that we look for after a convention is what's called a convention bounce. And that's usually when you see a boost in the polls for whoever wrapped up their convention. So right now, we would expect to see the latest polling coming out and showing Joe Biden in a really favorable light. And then after the Republican National Convention next week, we would expect that same convention boost after the RNC. So those are a bit of superficial numbers, but that is a way to measure how well someone did, how many people tuned in. And really, for a lot of Americans, it's not until the conventions that they really dial in. I've been on the campaign trail since the beginning, but most people are not engulfed in it every day. So the conventions may be their first look at hearing the party's platform and learning more about who the candidate is besides their public policy record.
Another way you can tell how well you did is how President Trump responds, isn't it? So has he fired up on Twitter or the like?
Absolutely. You can really tell when he's upset. He starts to tweet in all caps, and he did that just last night after former President Barack Obama just slammed him in his very eloquent and powerful speech. And President Obama has been his arch nemesis, I would say, for many, many years now. And so that really fired up the president. The president spent time today in the town next to Scranton, Pennsylvania, in that area where Joe Biden was born and where he spent a little chunk of his childhood before his family relocated here to Wilmington, Delaware. The president went there only to troll Joe Biden, only to try to take away the spotlight, to rain on his parade. And so the president is a gamesman. He's a showman. He was in Hollywood as an entertainer before entering the political arena, and he knows how to get under people's skin. He makes up these nicknames for people. Sometimes they're racist, sometimes they're sexist, oftentimes they're offensive, and that's who the president is. And you will see that on Twitter as it plays out.
And that was CNN's correspondent Nadia Romero joining us from the Democratic, virtual convention.